That's fine. Welcome back. Uh, Welcome tonight to the Town Council special meeting of Tuesday, June 21. We're in chambers. With that, I'll ask Ms. Milton to call the roll. Oh, you're not seated either. My goodness.
He's up and running around.
I was
Okay, Mr.
We're all here.
Slocum,
Good.
here.
Mr. Walsh.
Here.
Mr. Berwick.
Present.
Mr. Jinks. Here. Mr. Mylum.
Here.
Ms. Nichols. Here. Ms. Pavano.
Here.
Mr. Talbot. Here. Mr. Delaware.
Here. Thank you. Let's rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first up tonight is adoption of selected projects of fiscal year 2022-2023 annual capital expenditure budget. Mr. Barr, you want to take over?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Budget Committee and the council as a whole, and all members have been in attendance at all and participated, which is great, have met 3 times to review the capital budget. We've talked about different aspects of it. We've met with all the department heads involved. We've certainly had a lot of great help and support from the department heads. The town manager has given us a budget that we have not had a lot of discussion on a lot of items that we would like to move out. We kind of took a big meat cleaver to the capital budget a year ago and said, look, we're going to clear the deck for the large project, which is the school modernization, next generation. And so we cut out millions, about $15 million, I think, last year. And so there wasn't a lot left to cut out without significantly changing the services that we offer and the wear and upkeep of the equipment and infrastructure that we have in the town. So with that being said, the town manager has put in our packet 26 items that we are going to be considering tonight. Several of you have called me or contacted me with regard to different issues. I've gotten back to some of you regarding those and made some adjustments here. And there's a lot of back and forth with some issues and some wording on some of these. But hopefully you've had a chance to look at these. I do want to ask one more time if other council members have questions, and I think some of you do. And we can go through because certainly these are flexible and these are adjustable. And even if we had to make major changes, we could do that while we do the other 2 items on the agenda and then come back to them so that we can wrap this up tonight. So it's a lot of money we're spending. The 26 items leaves out 3 items, leaves out the $166 million for the schools because we need to do items that might be referendum questions within the 90 days of a referendum. So we have to do those at the August council meeting. We can't vote on those now. It would trigger a lot of things that we don't want triggered yet in terms of a timeline. The second item that's being left off is road reconstruction and repaving, and that's $2.4 million to do some of East Johnson, the 2,300 square feet, not square feet, 2,300 linear feet of Johnson, and then $1,875,000 for road repaving and other related work. And then it's leaving out $650,000 for the Dodd alarm system. And that, not that we don't want to do that. And I left a poor impression and the mayor corrected me and made me sound better after I made that comment. But we definitely want to do that. What we're looking at is we don't know yet how much we can get in grant money. So we don't know yet what the net cost of that is. I'm suspecting we're going to get down to a point where the net cost is going to be enough that it doesn't need to be a referendum question. And but the school board needs more time. The education department needs more time to find the grant money and get some kind of pretty good assurances that it would come through. And then, we may end up having to put a small amount of some ARP funds if we want to keep the referendum clean, that it would just be the 2 items. So those 3 items are being held in abeyance and will be looked at the August council meeting. And then they would become referendum questions, or in the case of the Dodd alarm system, it may not have to be a referendum question. We would just be able to approve the funds. We've had the public hearing, so we've been moving along properly as we need to on all those items. And so with that, I'm going to open up for final questions and discussion or items of concern to council members. So we'll start with the budget committee, if that's all right, just protocol, and then move on to the council. Mr. Jenks or Mr. Mylone, do either of you have questions on items? of concern? Okay.
Thank you, David. One thought I had, and I apologize for not bringing this forth to you guys sooner, was having to do with the replacement of the police vehicles. And I know we're kind of budgeting for 4 of them. So one suggestion I had is since we're sort of we've ordered them but are still waiting for them to arrive, if we could perhaps reduce that to 2, and also if there was an opportunity to use one of the vehicles, police vehicles that are coming kind of out of service there, to use that for the building department, being that it's a all-wheel drive vehicle, which is something they asked for. I don't know exactly what the condition is of the vehicles that are coming out of service for the police force, but it would seem like it's probably a vehicle that would have significant life left for the use by the building department. So that's something I wanted to at least have us consider, and maybe as a way to reduce some of these costs here for us and for the community.
Very legitimate questions and concerns. I'm going to hand it to the town manager because you've got the day-to-day knowledge of the details of these, and let you have the first crack at a response.
Sure. So, I mean, we did at the council's request, speak with Chief Drive and take a look at the vehicles that they had available when we first brought up the building department request. Those vehicles do have significant engine time and then sometimes also mileage by the time they're coming off service. I think the vehicles that are being replaced from the current order, there were none identified that would be appropriate for moving into the building department. There was nothing that would come directly off in satisfactory enough condition that the fleet managers at Public Works felt it would fit well for the building department, because we did look into that previously. I don't have off the top of my head knowledge of which specific vehicle would be replaced by the 2 that are coming in, but certainly if that was something that you'd like me to take back and give you more information, we're happy to do that.
Like I said, I haven't seen the condition. I don't know what the condition is exactly. It just, if they are police vehicles now, it strikes me as, the building department is something that would be a lot less demanding, I would think, on a police vehicle. But, if Public Works has decided that they don't work for us, then, that's good enough for me.
Other questions or comments? Mr. Sullivan?
Just a question and a comment, perhaps. I know to Jim's question, which I think was also raised at the time we were discussing the building department. As the town manager explained, they did go back and take a good look. And I know they came back and said, no, it's really not the right car. But here was my other question in the comment. And it had to do with just the use of police vehicles in general for the road work, the revenue generating road work. I don't know if that has increased demand for some of these vehicles and their extended use. But I think that's an issue one would think could indicate that we should stay on task with what we're appropriating for the vehicles now. It is a revenue producing area for the town, so there's an offset there, and because they're paying strictly for the car as opposed to the officer. The officer's paid for also, but here we are talking about capital and not personnel. So I would be reluctant to take us off sort of the more or less programmatic approach I think we've been taking over the last many, many years. And it's not a reason not to take a look, but I think that's one reason I would consider the fact that we have this relatively new program that's been highly successful, where we are generating revenue with the older vehicles. Presumably older vehicles. They're not all old vehicles that are at the stops, but in general, it's a way to make use of all the vehicles we have for as long as possible. That's just my comment.
Thank you. Any other input or questions? Sure.
I just had one extra thing, because I did bring it up to Chief Drive. I would suggest that he looks into increasing the what we charge to use those cars, especially with the increase in gas prices. And if these cars are kept running all day, you're going through a lot more money in gas. And I know he said that other towns do charge a little bit more. So, I don't know if, a few more bucks would really deter people from using it, but I think it would be a good idea to see if, because as gas for all of us keeps increasing, it's costing us all money, and we could lose some of that revenue that we're getting. So I ask if you could just check with him about that. Thank you.
Sure, yeah, happy to do it.
Other comments or questions? I would say that I have two thoughts to that. One that I've had for a little while now, driving around and thinking about these things and budgets and putting them together and all. And I'm a little concerned if we were to cut this year, because we're not going to get these new vehicles for another year. It's not where we get, there's a longer delay in these times that we're in right now than there normally is. So I'm a little bit concerned about that, because the consequences of our action won't be felt till a year from now. I'd like to not have us be stuck, because then we got to wait another year, because I don't know when those chips are going to get everything back to normal in terms of supply. But I'd also make two other points on that. One is that, if we've got 20 vehicles and they last about 5 years and we replace 4 a year in order to keep up with it, I'd like not to be part of breaking that, sort of what Mr. Slocum said, not breaking that pattern that we're in, because then you play double catch up later on. And I've been part of councils that have done that, and I will accept blame for having cut in years when we probably shouldn't have. And, when we were replacing 3 every year, and then one year, we can't afford it, let's do 2. Then you have to do 4, 2 or 3 years down the road. And then it's really hard to do that. And we really want, I would have to say, we really want them to be in tip-top shape because of the nature of their use and the emergency. They've got to be able to go. And we have had times in the past, and I'm sure hope we don't now, where they've gone out in the morning as start of a shift at 7 a.m. and the car hasn't worked. So they had to go and grab another one. And I'm sure our guys do a better job keeping up with them now than maybe we did in the past. But I would like to know that we're going to have them in tip-top shape. And if we've been replacing 4 a year every year for years, I'd like to keep that up, as long as the mileage and the condition of our and our public works garage people say that the condition is such that it needs to be done. With regard to switching it out, for one, I would have liked to see that as well. Not necessarily a police car, maybe another vehicle for the building department. But honestly, the building department is going to be covering the revenue necessary for that for sure, because of the increase in building that we're having around town and the increase in workload for them. So I think we're doing the right thing by approving the town manager's request for a vehicle there for them to have a new one to start in their rotation. 3 vehicles for 3 people working, because they're all going to be out at times. So I guess that would be my comment. I do appreciate that. It's great to see people looking into all the details and stuff. But other questions or comments?
On that specific or any other aspects?
Any aspect of the budget.
I had one question, if I may, and that goes to the tennis and pickleball lights. I know we settled in at 165, which I assume is the lighting for all. And I know there was some lengthy discussion on whether it could be or should be or would be another option. Are we all settled on that? I guess that's just a question.
There were a lot of emails back and forth, because I asked, we asked Mr. Golick to look at that, and he had emails to the town manager and myself. There's a cost estimate, a good estimate of $98,000 to do just the pickleball and lights for the parking lot. That would run the conduit and the wires from the main box there in where you would sit for the field, that green box there, down, so that if we did ever want to add them for the tennis, it would not be as expensive, because you've got a lot of it already run to there. So a lot of the infrastructure would be set for that. So I'm going to recommend, and we've got a pre-written amendment or motion change to the $98,000, for the simple reason that I don't think the department has made the case that we need to light the tennis courts, and the tennis courts are the closer part to the residences, and it would be higher lights, although the lights really do try to stay within their area. I would like to see us light the pickleball courts only and the parking lot.
We have lit.
And we had, well, that's why I was going to say the second part of it is, you know, and I know I'm just one council member and one citizen, but I went down past the tennis courts twice in the last week now, just for this reason. And around 9 o'clock at night, and nobody was there either night. Now, maybe it's a bad week. Maybe it's a bad time. I'm not a tennis player, so I don't know. But I'm not getting the feeling, and staff didn't push on this, that there is a lot of use that they need another area for lighted fields. And it doesn't preclude us from doing it another day if that's needed.
Follow up on that. You're recommending we reduce that dollar amount from
To 98, from 165 to 98, and reduce the scope of the project to lighting the pickleball fields and the parking lot.
Okay.
Thank you. I had my
Well, the
notes.
thing is, I know that I was wondering if it was penny wise, pound foolish, but I don't really at this stage, because we do have lighted tennis courts, which are south, obviously could drive a little further, but there's quite a few of them. It's not as if it's not a provision that the town provides. And this, of course, is in the face of pickleball demand, which we've learned, you know, is really worth demanding apparently. So I'll go along with that amendment.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? I think that covered all the areas that I've heard about. All right, well then, if it's all right with you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move the motions. And you have a summary in your packet of items 1 through 26. Now, I want to see the one. Sean, where's the one? Okay, number 6.
Should be number 6.
That's, yeah, I have. I didn't realize, you gave me all of these, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
This one.
So
yeah,
let me
the one that
pass-
We have has the 160.
there's an amended one, alternate one, I guess it's called. No, you're being handed it now. I apologize. I didn't get the logistics of this. So I understand protocol is that I read at least the beginning of each of these. Is that right? All right. So I got water.
I think you can read the summary,
Yes.
the first page summary page.
Is that all I have to read?
If you read the project and the dollar amount.
Okay. Oh,
And then the
that's
rest
better
has-
than, all right.
The number.
Okay.
The full text of the resolutions
All right.
will be attached to the minutes.
To 98. Thank you. All right. So resolution 062122-1, items 1 through 26 summary. Summary of a portion of appropriations and borrowing authorizations for the capital expenditure budget of the town of Cheshire for the 2022-2023 fiscal year. Additional projects may be approved at a later date, as we explained. Item 1, technology reserve fund, replacement equipment, $210,000. Not to be bonded from the CNR. Number 2, vehicle equipment replacement fund, $413,000, also not to be bonded. Number 3, capital planning account and building assessment design town, $100,000, not to be bonded. Number 4, various town building improvements, $220,000, not to be bonded. 5, various improvements to parks and open spaces, $150,000, not to be bonded. Number 6, Cheshire Park tennis pickleball lights, $98,000, not to be bonded. Number 7, Mixville Park trail and open space improvements at Mixville, $150,000, not to be bonded. Item 8, district-wide roof repairs and replacements, $125,000, not to be bonded. Number 9, capital planning account and building assessment design board of ed, $100,000, not to be bonded. Item 10, Veterans Memorial upgrades, $200,000 to be paid for by a state grant. We've already been told we have for $200,000. That's an aside. Item 11, West Main Street parking, streetscape, and trail access improvements, $350,000. We've already received $150,000 of that in a state grant. And there is language in here saying that this money shall not be expended until we review and approve the lease as a council for the ground lease for the space there. So,
And that's actually footnoted number 3 there at the bottom of the page too.
oh, okay. Thank
That-
you.
That project.
Um, Number 11, 12, Public Works dump truck and plow, $245,000 to be bonded. 13, Public Works vehicles loader, $230,000 to be bonded. 14, stormwater drainage disconnects, the MS4 program, sediment disposal, $110,000 to be bonded. 15, paving of the north parking lot and access drive, Cheshire Park, $250,000 to be bonded. 16, Moss Farms pump station upgrade, $125,000 to be bonded. 17, treatment plant in-kind equipment replacement, $170,000. That's to be from the funds in the enterprise fund. Jim,
So this is going to be an appropriation, we're going to appropriate the project. But at a subsequent meeting, we're probably going to have to appropriate funds out of the water pollution control
Right.
plan. So we
So-
don't have to do that tonight.
we're approving that it could be bonded. Well, the intent is not to bond it. Bond council wrote it this way, but our intent is to have these funds come to be paid for out of the savings that's in their fund balance. Okay, and the following one, right. Okay, so 18, treatment plant upgrade waste thickening control panels, $125,000 again to eventually come from the fund balance of the water pollution control budget. 19, generator upgrade CHS and Highland Elementary School, $280,000 to be bonded. Maybe available grants for that to help offset some of it. Number 20, lighting upgrades Highland Elementary School, $310,000 again to be bonded, but there may be some offsets and grants. 21, driveway and parking lot improvement district-wide throughout the Board of Ed buildings. That's to be bonded. 22, HVAC improvements at Dodd Middle School, $120,000. There may be some grant offsetting that. 23, HVAC improvements, CHS, $225,000 to be bonded. Number 25, unit ventilator replacements, Dodd and Doolittle, $300,000 that may have some offsetting grants. 25, school district-wide acoustical ceiling tile replacement, $100,000. And 26, education district-wide flooring replacement at $200,000 to be bonded. And that's the motion, sir.
We have a motion. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Walsh, thank you. Discussion? I guess I'd want to confirm the amended total. I believe it is $5,006,000. Is that about right?
Minus 67.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. The math I have is usually fluctuating in quality. But I thought
Fingers.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for vote on this. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That was so simple, it's got to be behind us, right?
Good, it's behind us.
Okay. Until we meet on this again.
Yeah, big
So number 4 on tonight's agenda is the adoption of the amendments to the voting districts ordinance, section 5-1. Mr. Veliver?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As many of you know, we've had to do this. Do you want me to read all the district boundaries?
You've got to read them all?
I think so, right?
Please don't. 4 pages.
Okay, I'm just,
As I would.
Yes, please.
I'm sure they didn't at the
The first
Capitol.
paragraph.
you have to pass it to read it. But we do have to amend the district boundaries for the district. So be it resolved that the town council approves resolution 062122-2. Be it resolved that pursuant to the recommendations of the ordinance review committee, the town council approves and adopts amendments to section 5-1 voting districts established ordinance as follows. And the text of that, of the districts as well as the exclusions is included in the materials.
Okay, we have a second from Mr. Walsh. Thank you. Discussion. primarily from the committee, I suppose.
Yes,
before.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. This has been a process. I would like to especially thank Tom Smith and Susan Pappas, the registrars of voters, and those in their office for putting this, starting this process and getting this together. Many people don't realize that we too are subject to the 10-year census, and so like at the federal level and the state level, after the following the 10-year census, we have to potentially look at the boundaries of the 4 town council districts to make sure that they are roughly equivalent in terms of the numbers of voters per district. And that obligation falls on the registrar to at least put that map together. And they've done that to create the new proposed boundaries. The Ordinance Review Committee has met a few times to discuss this proposal and made a few changes over the various meetings that they've had. And now that's what has been proposed at this point. The map attempts to consolidate the districts, and that mostly a lot of these districts are being created because of the changes in the state rep and state senate districts. Those changed in the last the state, and as a result, that's had a real impact on these boundaries and how they can be drawn to try to minimize split districts and minimize disruption to the voters. There are some changes to all 4 districts. Each one loses some areas and gains others. As the registrar said, we're all going to need to make new friends.
Mhm.
So with that, I just want to go through just a quick overview of what may shift on some of these districts. And then I don't know if you want me to go through the actual boundaries. We all have a map in front of you.
Right.
So you can see where each boundary, each district has changed, or not so much changed, but where they are going to be. And essentially, each of the districts, as I looked at it, they all sort of went about 1/8 of a turn this way. The town just sort of all shifted around. But that the first district will lose sort of the Oak to Mountain area, as well as the Academy to Wallingford Road area, but gain areas in South Cheshire along Route 10 and areas around North Brooksvale Road. Second district loses the Country Club area, as you can see on the map, from Brook Lane to Creamery, but gains areas, the area between Academy and Wallingford Road. Third district gains that Country Club area, and that's primarily due to the fact you can see that it jumps Route 10, but that's due to the fact that the 103rd district carved out that notch when they changed. And as a result, if that stayed in the second district, it was going to create a third split district in the second district. And so that comes across the street, and the third loses the sort of Mixville area. And the fourth district picks up that Mixville area, as well as an area between Oak and Mountain, but loses areas around Route 42, as well as South Cheshire along the east side of Route 10. And one area I want to point out that has been sort of an area of a little bit of discussion, but I wanted to get it of records where that line is. But that's the area between in the Hilltop area around North Brooksvale. As the boundary says, it goes from the running westerly on the Ridgecrest Drive to Hilltop Road, thence generally northerly overland east of Hilltop Road to the intersection of Hilltop Road and North Brooksvale Road, thence northerly across North Brooksvale to Ott Drive. And that's the boundary between the first and the fourth district out there. And I just want to get it of record that because it sort of talks about northerly over that, I just want to say that addresses, as explained by the registrar, addresses that have a Hilltop address will be all in the fourth district. The line will go behind all those houses on Hilltop and come out at the corner of Hilltop and North Brooksvale, and that all houses on North Brooksvale on the south side of North Brooksvale coming around the curve and leading up to the corner of Hilltop, which includes the house at the corner of Hilltop and North Brooksvale on the south side, will be in the first district. So basically, houses with Hilltop addresses are in the fourth. Houses with North Brooksvale up to Hilltop are in the first. And the only other, so that I just wanted to get that of record, so that because that line's a little, I just wanted to clarify where that's going to be. With that, Obviously, if there's any other questions or if Peter or Don want to talk about this process at all, happy to turn it over.
How fun it was.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Veliber. Yeah, it was, I want to thank Tom and Susan as well, our registrars, for their work on this, as well as my colleagues on the Ordinance Review Committee for their patience and persistence with this. As you may have just heard Mr. Veliber explain, this is sometimes as clear as mud. So the good news is the registrars will be putting together information packets for all Cheshire residents so that they know where they're voting, which districts they're in, whether it be a local, state, or federal election. The other thing that gave me a little bit of confidence was that in checking the charter, the council or future councils has the ability to go in and redistrict. There was some discussion throughout our meetings about the third district in particular, because that appears, at least right now, to be the area of the largest amount of growth. But as the registrars were quick to explain to us, this is a snapshot in time, and the districts were very equally balanced based on the work that they did. We've seen, even as of today, that those numbers have changed because it is, it is in fluctuation all times. So, but like I said, the charter does give us the ability to go in and take a look at this if things do get out of whack, and we feel it's important to bring things back into alignment. So, with that, I will yield back to my colleague.
Thank you. I too want to thank Tom and Sue for putting up with us, because we looked at this and this doesn't make sense. I think Peter and I said, why don't we just draw a one line down, one line across, and have at it? But it's not that easy, because we had to look at the state. And just for those people, we really tried to put that country club road area back into the second district, Jim. But because of the way the state cut out that little notch, which I still can't fathom why they did that. So the people who live next door to Chapman and across the street from Chapman, or not across, but live next door to Chapman, they have to go and vote at Dodd. We tried to fix that, but we couldn't, because we were told that if we did have those people voting at Chapman, there would have to be a separate voting machine, which costs more money, separate ballots that cost more money, and it could be a little chaotic on voting day. So we try to make it as simple as possible. The old district, District 3, which I represent, used to have 3 polling places. Now is back down to 2, which is good, because we used to have 3 different places that people were voting for the third district. So I think it's a good thing. When we looked at the numbers today, I was surprised to see, after all said and done, there's about 150 people difference between the lowest amount and the highest amount. And as Mr. Talbot said, we can relook at this if we see a large influx of people in the third district. We could look at this and redo it if we need to. Or we could just wait another, it's not even 10 years now. I think it's 7 or 8 years. So we could do that, and the next people after us can handle it. And we don't have to look at these maps anymore and try to figure out all these west and east and north and south and compasses and things like that I'm pulling out, trying to figure it out. But thank you to my colleagues as well for working with us all. And I think we did the best we could. And I think Sue and Tom did the best they could on this.
Thank you, Don and Peter. And I think it's important to and Don brought up a good point. With this new change, it does consolidate a little bit in the voting districts, in the sense that the first district will still have 1 polling place at the high school, but the second, third, and fourth will now all have 2 polling places. The third had 3. So at least now that brings 1 polling place down out of the third district. So there's now 2 polling places. in the second, third, and fourth district, and one at the high school for the first district. And as Peter mentioned, the registrars will be sending out notice to everyone because there will be, because each district was touched in this, there will be a lot of people moving council districts throughout the town. And there's going to be, so there will be a lot of people and people who have also, as a result of that, they'll also, some people will be obviously moving to new polling places as well. So with that, are there any questions from the council members?
I was just going to make one comment that as unlike the sort of federal and state line drawing, this was not a political process. This was purely our registrars trying to figure out a way to evenly divide up the town as best they could. So I think it's important for the community to understand that this really, and I'm sure some people may still think that it's a political process, but it was not. So I just think it's important to get that out there.
Thank you. I'm not sure if any of us were drawing this, this may not be what the map would look like if any of us had our say on what exactly this map was going to look like. So I agree with you. Thanks, Jim.
I had a question. And you may not know the answer, but obviously with an eighth of a turn, as you put it, the impact is on, how many voters would you guess? I mean, you're talking hundreds of people are now in different districts, many
Yeah.
more than that? I mean,
Yeah, I would say
Yeah.
thousands.
Yes.
thousands.
There's about 400 just in that Country Club Road area.
Okay.
So
So I guess that's the big word, is that this is a pain in the neck.
Yeah.
And so this has to be approved so that the registrars can do what they need to do. We've got primaries coming up. We've got all kinds of things going on. And we want maximum turnout in elections, particularly with some of the important referendum items, you know. So this doesn't have a direct impact on the town council this year, but it will, obviously, in a year. So
Right.
there's-
So just nice, thank you. And yes, yes, as you pointed, it will be difficult for a lot of people because as you mentioned, as Don said, even this notch has the area between Wallingford and Academy, that's about 400 voters as well. So almost each block that moved had about 400 voters in it. So, so you're looking at probably 1,400 voters that are sort of being shifted from one district to the next. So as I said, that probably wouldn't also have been our choice if we, if we could have had some say on that as well. But it reflects too the population of town and where people are living in town and where the more dense populations are, have a higher consolidation of where those are. So you can see so some of the districts are more spread out and some are more consolidated than others.
Thank you. Having been a little bit involved in the state reapportionment years back and of course our own in past life, it's a difficult task. So I thank the committee members. You guys had a difficult task. I noticed you were all district council members. I welcome any of you who are confused now about your districts to run at large with the rest. And it won't matter to you. I will say to people like a Brook Lane that's split, in half, that's actually not a bad thing. Because one side of the road is the second district, one side is the third district. If there's a problem on Brook Lane, both of you are going to be helping them out. So that's the philosophy behind the state splitting up towns. Is that if there's a problem in Cheshire, we have 5 representatives. We're the right size to be one state rep district and slightly more, but we're not. We're 3, and then the 2 senators. So the idea is that there are more people to help with each town if there's an area. Here, there's more people to help if there's a street issue, but this is local. They're going to call whoever they know, whether they're at large, whether they're district, whatever. So I think you guys have done a good job. The registrars worked hard on this, and you saved money in elections now because there's one less division of a polling district. So appreciate that. And
We could have created another one.
We could have made an extra.
We would have created another one.
yeah, so this made one consolidation. So I think that's good. And the money will be well spent with the postcard sending out to all the residents, letting them know where they're going to vote. Because as the mayor said, this is a very important election coming up with the referendum questions.
Okay, with seeing no further comments or questions, I'll call for a vote on this. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And thank you for that. We now go to the approval of a building permit fees waiver. This is something we often do as a council, but we do have an opportunity here to really make an important difference for a new member to the community. And with that, without more discussion, we'll have that after. I'll ask Mr. Bowery to introduce the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Be it resolved that the Town Council approves Resolution 062122-3. Be it resolved that pursuant to the Town of Cheshire Code of Ordinances, Section 3-3D2, the Town of Cheshire approves a waiver of building permit fees for the new construction at 7 Sierra Court.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Mr. Talbot, was that you?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman? This is a fast-moving but very important, very good for our community project. I think we've all gotten the notice that it's a house to be built for a person in need, a veteran who this organization is going to be building this house for them and doing some a wonderful thing for our community. It was great that we were selected because they don't do very many. They don't have the funds to do too many of these. And we have other, Habitat for Humanity has done some housing around town as well, and they blended in wonderfully with the community, as this will. And I think it's a great thing. And any little bit that we can do to help encourage that, I think is wonderful.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Thank you. Is this, I believe there is an event for this Saturday at
There
the
is indeed.
Cornerstone Church?
Yes.
Okay.
Last Saturday.
Would you like me to speak to that?
What?
Would you like me to speak to that?
Sure, if you could.
Yes, yes. The town learned of all of what was going on with a communication made to Sean Kimball, our town manager. The organization who is building this home is Homes for Our Troops, Inc. They're a nonprofit, obviously, and they raise money through donations similar to groups like Tunnel to Towers and organizations like that. And they're specifically building homes for disabled veterans. The event is going to be Saturday at 10 o'clock at the Cornerstone Church on Route 70. It's, I believe, going to be widely attended, but I encourage members of the council who may be available to go there. You're definitely welcomed. We're going to meet a family and the beneficiaries of this generosity. And when I was speaking to one of the people who works for the organization, I was a little curious. I said, well, how did these folks decide to build a home here? Kind of thinking that the organization decided, but that's not it at all. The owners, the new owners of this home wanted to come to Cheshire because of the schools. And I've heard that so many times, I almost never believe it. And because I was born here, so I went to Cheshire schools, didn't have to pick. But our schools are very, very important. And to hear this, is the first thing out of someone's mouth about a home being built for a disabled veteran and his family was really like interesting and nice. And I was happy to hear it. So this is going to be a nice event. As I said, widely attended, chance to be introduced to the family. Obviously, they'll become community members. They'll be paying taxes just like every other homeowner, and life will go on for them normally, and that'll be terrific. And we'll be welcoming of them into our community. I just wanted to bring you guys up to date with that. So if you can attend, it's probably an hour in length. And we were all invited, so I wanted to pass that along. Any further issues with the mechanics or questions on that? So we'll call for vote on this. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, now I have on my calendar, on the agenda, appointments to boards and commissions, and I believe, Peter, it was because you were going to have a nomination for tonight.
Correct. I actually have two, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
very good.
And I appreciate you adding this to tonight's agenda for me to be able to bring these two nominations forward. The first is of nomination of Jennifer Dillon to the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission. This is a nomination to replace Carrie Dunn, the term of office 6/21/22 through 1/31/25, and Ms. Dillon is a Democrat. The second appointment is for Alita Looker. It is a renomination to the Greater Waterbury Transit District, term of office 6/21/22 through 6/30/26, and Ms. Looker is a Democrat.
I would be happy to second those.
We have a motion, we have a second, we have two new volunteers. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously, and thank you, new volunteers. I will note for the record, I just simply saw this editorial in the paper, but Mr. Kerry Dunn's husband wrote a little list of things he loved in the town of Cheshire and how he was going to miss it. But then he cited the obvious, he won't miss the taxes here. So, but I thought it was nice because he's, not everybody writes an editorial to say how much they like the town. And I thought that was nice to read. It was short and sweet and to the point, but still, nonetheless, it was good. So with that, I'll call for a motion to adjourn. Mr. Belliber, second. Mr. Walsh, thank you. All those in favor? Motion carries. We're out of here.